Greetings, friends, and welcome to a bit of a more complicated build. I'm not as much building a prop today as I'm building a piece of themed furniture, and it's a wild one, as you've probably seen by the thumbnail. I'm making a wand rack for my wife's birthday. She's a huge Harry Potter fan, and I want to make it so it'll hold 12 wands with enough space to allow for the more ornate ones. And if you also look very carefully, the centerpiece here is actually half of the Deathly Hollow symbol, which I thought was really cool. So when you're going to go select the wood, and if you're doing this as a starting woodworker, go tackle some of my other projects. This one's a little bit more complicated, and heck, I'm not as professional as I could be, but this definitely has a bit more nuance to it. So just be aware of that going into it. So I'm going to be using 1x6 for this. It's actually 1x5.5, 3/4 of an inch by 5.5. And what you're looking for is you want two pretty straight. They can have a little tiny bit because it'll be brought out when you attach everything together. But the flatter and straighter it is, the better. And the other thing you got to watch out for is big knots. Because if you have these, when you go to do this cutout here or this cutout, you may run into trouble with it breaking out and everything like that. Now, I'm going to go get this glued on, but I'm set this up to be done in one of two ways. These are 1.5 inch circles, so if you want, and they're going to be marked on the template. If you want to use a Forstner bit to knock these out, glue the template on, and the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to knock out all those holes. So you have all of the spots for the wands preset, and then you'll do the rest of the cutting with whatever saw that you want, jigsaw, bandsaw. I'm going to be doing a lot of this on the scroll saw. Actually, you need a scroll saw for this or a jigsaw. Anyways, I'm going to get going. I'm going to get this glued down, and you'll see as we go along how things work out. So you'll go grab the template, and you're using this what is this called stuff? Super 7 3M glue. Spray the paper, let it dry just a little bit, and then stick it down. You want to cut your template so that back side matches up with the beautiful side of your piece of wood. Then come this way, stick it all down. And then what I did is I used my bandsaw to rough cut through here. You can see how I leave space. That allows me room for sanding after I'm done. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my scroll saw. I'm going to cut out all these circles. I tried doing the cutting it out with the bit, but I find you always run into the issue of it breaking out at the back, and the risk was too high, so I'm like, I'm just going to do it with the scroll saw. So I'm doing all these with the scroll saw. If you clamp it when you go to cut through with the bit, you'll be safe with it that way, but lots of work to have one of them screw up and break out a whole area. Now, this, you'll just want to put in a couple drill holes for the scroll saw blade, so when you go cut this out, this on my scroll saw was a nightmare because my throat is just not long enough that when I'm pushing in from this side, that keeps on hitting the back of the throat. It just drives me nuts. But anyways, then once you're done, you'll end up with something like this. Now, if you decide to route this like I did here, be aware that the router bit won't go fully into the corners. So you'll end up with a very stylized looking version of these corners. You can be good with that and be done. Or what I did is I made myself a bunch of extra work, and I used my chisels to complete those corners only on the outside facing edge. The inside facing edge is going to look like that because nobody looks at it. It's going to be covered with wands, and I don't want to. So now, when you do this, I flip my template here. You can obviously see that it's been flipped. And the reason behind that is then you get the good side of your wood up, and if you have any curve cut on the bottom, it'll both be to the same side, to the inside. And yeah, then you'll have two of these, and you can actually see the Deathly Hollows there now. That's pretty cool. I'm going to go get this cut out, and we'll start talking about all the other pieces we have to build. Now, I got all carried away to a point. So we're going to be putting a drawer in the bottom of this. So this is going to be 3 inches. So you need to do a dado to allow for the wood that you'll be cutting to insert right into here beautifully. I've set these up as 1/4-inch dados, and then when I actually had a small run out because this board is slightly cupped and it rolled in my radial arm saw while I was cutting the dados. So thanks, radial arm. And, well, actually, thanks to me, I didn't pay attention to the fact that my board was cupped. So you'll be doing one right at the very bottom, and then from the top of this to here is 3 inches, because that's how much space we need for the drawer. You'll be doing that on both sides, and then you'll be cutting these boards, which are going to be 8.5 inches wide by the 5.5 inches deep. And this is all coming out of the same piece of wood so far, so I'm guaranteed that all my widths here are great. But if it's not, just make sure it's flush to the front when you start gluing this thing all together. So just like that, that'll slip into there, all happy like. Oh, amazing I could do that with one hand. And that will get us the basis of the actual wand stand done. Now, on the same template, you are going to find these 2 pieces. This one, really straightforward, just a straight piece of wood with a single route on the top. That'll get it for in here. Just mainly I wanted it so, A, if you attach it to the wall, you have something to screw through, and B, it stiffens up the whole thing to make sure you have a really good square on the whole design. Now this is more complicated. You can be as simple or as lack of simple as you want. But what this is built around is this Hogwarts symbol. And as you can see, that thing looks pretty darn cool. I 3D printed it, and it's available on Thingiverse. I'll put a link in the actual description of this video so you can go find this exact logo, because it took me a while to get the right one. And then all I did was using my router, I went through and I did this. Now, the inside, I left the template on, and then using this itty bitty 1/4-inch bit? I think it's 1/4-inch. Looks 1/4-inch. Professionalism all the way. I used that, and going to the template, I just finished just short of all of this. The circle, though, I went exactly to, because I didn't feel like chiseling out all of that. And then once that was done, I used my chisel to clean up these corners, and then I used a gouge to do this wood texture, because I just thought it looked cool. And it's about varying their textures. I like the way that looks when you do that, but I didn't want to do it up in the circle, so I put in a burr bit on my Dremel, and you can see I did the whole thing there. I just drew a rough shape, so I didn't end up having to do the whole thing. So when that goes in there, it'll look all good. Anyways, you can see how I'll mark this on the template, though, how I routed down to here. And what that does is it allows this to sneak into the top, and then your lines line up beautifully on the top like that. And there we go. We're starting to get the main frame of our wand stand done. I got to go through and do a whole bunch of sanding. Now, once you've got this thing all assembled, you'll have it glued and you'll let it dry. We're going to start working on the drawer. And you can make this drawer as tight as a fit as you want. You don't want it too loose, because you want the left and the right to be pretty close, because we're going to have a piece of wood that covers the front here, and you don't really want it to shift a heck of a lot. So this is 3 inches, and I made this 2 7/8, or a little bit more. Let's see here. Yeah, 2 7/8 high. Now, you'll see that once again, I did the 1/4-inch knockdown for the joint on it. And at the bottom, leaving about 8, I made room for some masonite, because it just makes for a really nice finish when it goes through and creates the bottom of the drawer. So you pretty much just go through. The 2 end caps need to be notched, but the 2 sides just need to have the groove in it for the wood. You can just route this bottom open and nail this piece of wood right into the bottom, but I really like the way that looks when it's a hidden seam. Just gives it that extra bit of je ne sais quoi. Anyways, I'm going to get this glued up. Going to test fit it, make sure everything's good, and we'll talk about starting to finish off the side here and the front of the drawer. Now, with modern magic of a little bit of wood filler, we've got our drawer completely done, all assembled. Now, the front, what I suggest you do is, depending on how it goes, when this drawer piece here goes in, measure from the top of the drawer to the top of the wood to figure out where your line will go to lock this down. And even then, it's kind of, what I did is I put this in like this. I glued it, and then I clamped it exactly where I wanted it. So it looks good, and then I just eyeballed the gap on either side. Worked out pretty well, and yeah, it turned out awesome. Now, right here, you'll see that I've got a large hole drilled into the back of this. That's because the only bolt that I had is a 1-inch M2 bolt, and it doesn't fit all the way through. For the hardware that's going to go on, which happens to be, the hardware happens to look like this. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, you'll know exactly what that is. I designed this up in my 3D CAD program, and it goes here to be the drawer pull for this. Now, I believe I mentioned this before, but these are set up for the actual symbols on for the Harry Potter houses, and there's going to be 4, so there's room for 4 houses. The other 2 on the side are pretty much exactly the same, but I just glued them on. It's not the best. I should have countersunk that, but you know, in the end, it's not the end of the world. This worked out great. These are I'll make sure that you have the dimensions for these, and then once again, all I did was route them out, and then use the chisel to give it some texture, and you'll see that that goes there, and those staples get hidden by the it gets hit by the tag. Funny little story. You see that staple right there? Well, I'd swapped my 1.5-inch staples down to 3/4-inch staples. So when I stapled, it would go from here into this piece of wood with no problem. What I didn't realize is when I pulled out my staples, there was one left in the chamber. So when I hit this, it went right through. And when I came back outside to see how everything had dried and I was unclamping these, my drawer was stuck, and I was trying to figure out why the heck. It was like, did I glue it? What did I do wrong here? Sure enough, that staple fired right through both sides, and you can probably still see the hole right there. Fired right into the side of the drawer, sticking the whole thing together. Just, what's the chances of it happening is low. So anyways, to this point now, this is where you get to choose what color stain you're going to go with. And everybody has their own favorite. I'm debating between, I have a reddish gel stain, which would give this a really nice look, or I'm going to go with honey oak and take it from there. But you're going to see what I decide after I get this thing all done. Anyways, go through, sand it really nicely, get it to where you want to. Ignore my absolute chaos of a workbench. Like, good gosh. And once you've got it to where you want it, then stain away. And yeah, we'll talk about after I stain it, because there's some aging I want to do with it. See if you. And thus we have our finished wand stand. So I ended up going with a honey oak as the base stain, and then I used some dark walnut to do these areas in here and the areas up here, just to give that differentiation of color, to give it that, so it stands out more. And this here is adhesive felt you can buy on, I bought it on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure you can get it anywhere. And it's great because you cut each size perfectly to hold the wand, well, to have that area for the wand done beautifully. And yeah, and see the final, my lovely little drawer slide, everything worked out gorgeous on here. You can see how all of the, house symbols now sitting there really nice. Regardless, hopefully my wife's not watching this, because if so, happy birthday. Well, I told her not to watch this. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this really fun build of a wand stand. And, it is out of the place of the normal. And this really is more of a piece of furniture than it is a prop, because it's built to be permanent. Like, hopefully we'll decide if we're going to leave it here or she's going to move it somewhere else. That'll be up to her. But regardless, thanks everybody for hanging out, for watching these crazy ideas of mine, for subscribing, listening to my crazy birds in the background, and all of that type of things. I just realized that almost every video where I'm saying goodbye, I've got an animal in the background. Last time it was a dog, now it's a budgie who's getting very angry at me. Anyways, Yeah, big thanks to my patrons for throwing me a little bit each month to help out with my videos. And after that, have a good one all.